The sky above the border city was a deep, bruised purple, streaked with the last light of a dying sun. The walls of stone and steel glinted faintly as the wind whispered through the narrow streets. Smoke from distant forges mingled with the scent of damp earth. Kale, a human warrior, walked slowly along the worn path, his boots echoing on cobblestones that had felt the tread of countless soldiers before him. His eyes, sharp and weary, scanned the horizon. He had been traveling for days, avoiding patrols and rumors of danger, yet he could not help but feel drawn toward the city's heart, where tales of strange powers and alien warriors thrived. Kale's hand rested on the hilt of his sword. He was cautious but curious. Stories spoke of an alien woman whose armor was unlike anything anyone had ever seen, a living suit that shimmered with energy, bending light as if the world itself obeyed her. Some whispered she was cursed, others said she was more than human. Either way, she was someone no warrior could ignore. The courtyard was quiet when Kale arrived, almost unnaturally so. Vines crept along the edges of cracked walls and pools of water mirrored the fading sky, and there she stood. Lyra. She removed her helmet with a slow, deliberate motion, her hair falling like molten silver over the shoulders of her armor. The armor itself seemed alive, glowing faintly and shifting in subtle patterns that no human eye could fully understand. Kale froze, caught in the sight of something both terrifying and beautiful. "Are you staring at my armor, human?" Her voice rang sharp, confident, and slightly amused. It made Kale jump as though he had been caught in a trap. He shook his head quickly, trying to hide the awe in his eyes. I didn't mean to," he said, though the words sounded weak even to him. Lyra studied him. There was a flicker in her gaze, almost like surprise, and then a subtle, guarded smile. "Curiosity is natural," she said, "but be careful. Curiosity can be dangerous in places like this. I am not here to cause trouble. I wanted to see who you are. But more than that, I am bound to this armor and it binds me. Those who touch it without understanding are lost." There was something compelling about her presence, something that whispered of mysteries beyond his understanding. Lyra's eyes narrowed, scanning him. Her armor shifted subtly as though responding to his gaze, and Kale felt an almost imperceptible warmth that made him step back. He realized then that the armor was not just protection. It was alive, aware, and perhaps even judging him. "Why are you here, human?" she asked. "I seek answers," he replied carefully. "There are stories, tales of power and curses. I need to know what is true." The courtyard opened into a small garden, strange flowers glowing faintly in the shadow. Lyra paused by a fountain, the water reflecting the sky in ripples. She gestured toward it. "Sit. If you wish to learn, you must listen, and you must be honest with yourself. Humans often fail at that." "I promise." He could sense her loneliness, the immense burden she carried. "I do not know if I can help," he said softly, "but I want to understand." Kale noticed that the patterns on its surface pulsed faintly, as if in tune with Lyra's heartbeat. He swallowed hard. He had expected to be afraid, but instead he felt drawn. Suddenly, a low, distant rumble shook the courtyard. Lyra's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. The armor shifted and extended slightly around her, protective and alert. Kale realized with a start that the armor was not just a suit of metal. It was alive and aware, ready to act. "Stay back," Lyra said, her voice sharper now. "Danger comes always." Lyra's armor glowed brighter, streaks of light moving like veins across her shoulders and arms. She turned to Kale, her eyes flickering with a mixture of warning and curiosity. "Do you see?" she asked. "Even here, even in stillness, the world will not leave me alone. The armor, it responds to threats. It senses danger that you cannot see." He was no longer merely a human wandering a city. He was now a witness to something ancient, powerful, and deeply lonely. "You should leave," Lyra said suddenly, her voice quiet but firm. "The armor will not let harm come to me easily, but you are untested. Curiosity alone may not protect you. The stories, they are not enough. And yet here you are." She stepped toward the edge of the garden, poised to leave, her armor shifting with each movement, alive and protective. Kale followed, unwilling to let her face danger alone. "Wait," she said, glancing back. Her eyes softened for a brief second, an emotion Kale could not name. "You may survive this if the armor allows it, but understand this, nothing is simple here, not your curiosity. Not your heart, and certainly not mine." And then, just as suddenly as it had flared, the light dimmed, leaving them both in shadow. Kale's heart raced. He had glimpsed something extraordinary, something ancient and dangerous, yet beautiful beyond words. He knew with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified him that his life had changed forever. The first encounter was over, but the story was only beginning. And somewhere deep in the glow of living metal, a secret stirred. One that would tie their fates together in the city beyond the courtyard burned softly in the fading light, fires casting a restless glow over broken streets. Cale walked beside Lyra, keeping his distance, though every step drew him closer to the mystery she carried. Her armor shimmered faintly in the dusk, shifting like living water, reflecting both danger and beauty. "You know," Lyra said without looking at him, her voice low and steady, "humans often think courage is strength. They confuse bravery with understanding. If you let me, we shall see. They are unpredictable, reckless. Tested how?" He stepped into the shallow riverbed, dust rising beneath his boots. Lyra raised her hand, and the armor shifted violently, plates clicking and stretching like living scales. The air hummed with tension. From the shadows of the canyon walls, figures emerged, beasts twisted by curses, their forms half metal, half flesh, eyes glowing with unnatural fire. Cale's heart thumped, but he held his ground. Lyra's eyes met his, and he saw a flicker of approval, or perhaps surprise. "Do you understand?" she asked. "These creatures do not forgive, they do not reason, they are born from hatred and pain. Your strength alone will not save you." The armor around her seemed to pulse with light, energy rippling outward. She raised a gauntleted hand, and Cale felt a faint push in the air, like the world itself recognizing the trial. The first beast lunged. Its body was jagged, a horrifying combination of steel and sinew. Cale barely managed to dodge, rolling aside as its claws slammed into the stone where he had been standing. Lyra's armor shifted again, reflecting light across the riverbed and confusing the creatures. "Do not just fight," she called. "Think, move, sense." It was as if the armor controlled the battlefield itself. With a deep breath, Cale moved deliberately, focusing not just on defense but on observation. He began to anticipate the creatures' attacks, guiding his movements with the rhythm Lyra's armor seemed to create. He struck carefully, avoiding reckless swings, and one by one the beasts faltered, retreating into the shadows with growls of frustration. Lyra's eyes glimmered with something Cale could not name, approval perhaps, or pride. "Interesting," she murmured. "You adapt. That is rare." "From the armor, it reacts to what is inside you, not just your actions." A larger, more terrifying beast emerged, its body twisting unnaturally, metal fused with bone. Lyra's armor flared violently, shielding Cale with a wave of energy. He stumbled but stayed on his feet, heart pounding. "You must survive," Lyra commanded. "Not just for yourself, but for what comes next. The bond has begun. You will see soon enough what that means." Cale dodged, rolling under its massive claws. He swung his sword, striking at its leg, but the blow barely fazed it. Panic rose, but he forced himself to breathe, to focus. He remembered Lyra's words, "Think, sense, move." With a well-timed strike, he landed a blow that made the creature stagger. It hissed and retreated into the shadows, leaving the canyon eerily silent. Cale's knees shook, but he stood tall, glancing at Lyra. Her armor dimmed slightly, her eyes soft but guarded. "You survived," she said simply. "That is unexpected." I did it," he whispered. Lyra studied him. "You did, but this is only the beginning. The bond grows stronger with each trial, and it will demand more than courage. It will demand honesty, truth, and one day, sacrifice." Something about her and the armor pulled him forward, promising a path filled with danger, mystery, and connection unlike anything he had known. The air around them shifted. A faint whispering echoed, carried by the wind. Cale realized it was not the creatures speaking but the armor itself, alive and aware, sensing more than either of them could fully comprehend. Lyra stepped closer. "Come," she said softly. "We move forward. There are places you have never seen and truths you cannot yet imagine. If you survive, if you endure, perhaps you will understand why I am bound. Perhaps you will understand me." His mind raced with questions, but his heart felt a strange certainty. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it by her side. As the sun finally disappeared behind the horizon, the last light reflected on Lyra's armor, glowing faintly like embers of a dying fire. Cale could not look away, and somewhere deep within the living metal a quiet awareness stirred. It recognized him. It judged him. And it waited. The trials had only begun, and already Cale knew his life was intertwined with hers in ways that could not be undone. Night had fallen over the borderlands, a velvet darkness pierced only by the faint glow of distant fires. Kale followed Lyra through a winding path that led into the ruins of an ancient temple, hidden beneath creeping ivy and jagged rocks. The wind whispered through the broken columns, carrying a scent of damp stone and old magic. The air felt thick, heavy with the weight of centuries, and Kale could sense the quiet pulse of something alive in the shadows. Lyra moved gracefully ahead of him, her armor shifting with subtle energy, plates sliding smoothly over one another like liquid silver. Despite the armor's strength, her movements were almost delicate, precise, as if she carried the weight of the world and the promise of death in equal measure. Kale could not look away, but he did not dare speak. He had learned that words must be chosen carefully with her. "This place is older than any human memory," Lyra said finally, her voice a soft murmur that blended with the wind. "It was built to honor the dead, but it remembers more than that. It remembers those who tried to defy fate. Every battle, every loss, every choice, and the curse that binds me to my armor. It is not just protection, it is a prison, and yet it is all I have. Survival is not the same as freedom. The armor, it is a part of me, but it is not all of me. I am tethered to it. My heart, my soul, even my choices are limited by it. That is why I test you. Most cannot bear to see themselves reflected in my armor, in my life. Not just the armor, not just the battles, but you, everything. But there is something in you, something that does not bend to fear or doubt. It is rare among humans. If you wish to understand, you must see the truth of this bond, not through words, but through experience. Are you ready?" Kale felt a shiver run down his spine. Lyra raised her gauntleted hands, and the armor flared with light, casting elongated shadows across the broken columns. The whispers grew louder, yet Lyra's voice cut through them, clear and commanding. "Face yourselves," she said. "Not the shadows, not the ghosts. Face what you carry inside. Only then will the armor accept you." He did not understand completely, but he felt the pull of the armor, a gentle yet insistent tug that seemed to beckon him toward courage, toward truth. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, letting the darkness of the temple settle around him. Memories rose unbidden, failures, regrets, moments of fear he had tried to bury. The whispers of the temple seemed to echo his doubts, mocking him, drawing them into shapes that twisted before his eyes. And yet he felt Lyra's presence, steady and unwavering. Her armor pulsed softly, as if guiding him, offering a rhythm, a cadence to match his own heartbeat. "You are not alone," she said softly, her voice threading through the shadows. "Even if the world turns against you, even if the past haunts you, you are not alone." For the first time, he felt a strange clarity, a connection not just to her, but to something beyond fear and pain. Then the shadows moved differently, coalescing into a single towering form, a specter of Lyra's past. Its eyes were hollow, its voice a chilling echo. "You cannot escape. You are bound as I was. You cannot have freedom or love. Only the armor, only the curse. He cannot survive." "You see, human," she said, her voice calm now. "The curse is not only mine, it reacts, it tests, it judges, and it is beginning to recognize you. But this is only the start. You must endure more than courage. You must endure truth." The shadows, the whispers, the living armor, they demanded honesty, and not all humans could bear it. The specter of Lyra's past hesitated, its form flickering, then slowly dissipated, leaving only the echo of its voice. "Beware, the bond you form is not easily broken. Pain will follow." She exhaled, a sound of both relief and exhaustion. "It is done for now," she said quietly. "You have faced your first trial not only against the world but against yourself. Few survive this without faltering. The bond grows stronger with each trial, and soon it will demand more than courage. It will demand trust, honesty, and one day sacrifice." For the first time, she let a faint, almost imperceptible smile touch her lips. "Perhaps," she said, "perhaps you are not like the others." It was a bond, quiet but undeniable, stretching across the distance between human and alien, mortal and magical. As they prepared to leave the temple, Kale glanced at Lyra, unsure what to say. She looked back at him, her eyes reflecting the faint glow of her armor, and he felt a sudden understanding. This journey, these trials, were only the beginning. And somewhere deep within the living metal, a quiet awareness stirred. It recognized him, it judged him, and it waited. The shadows of the temple receded behind them, but Kale knew that their path would only grow darker and more challenging from this moment forward. He had glimpsed the truth of Lyra's curse, the depth of her solitude, and the living bond of her armor. Yet despite the fear, despite the unknown, Kale felt something he had never felt before, a sense of purpose, of connection, and the quiet certainty that he would not walk away. The trials would continue. The bond would grow. And the shadows of the past would not be easily forgotten. The air smelled of ash and iron as Kale and Lyra emerged from the temple ruins, the sky above painted with streaks of crimson and gold. The borderlands were no longer quiet. Distant shouts and the clash of steel reached them through the wind. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a battle raged, echoing the unrest of a world that had long been fractured by fear and power. Lyra's armor shimmered softly in the dying light, plates moving like liquid metal over her body. Kale could see the subtle glow responding to the tension in the air, almost as if it anticipated the challenges ahead. He had survived the trials of the temple, faced shadows of truth and fear, but now he understood that the real test had only begun. "Do you feel it?" Lyra asked, her voice quiet but firm. She did not look at him as she walked ahead, her steps measured and confident. Kale nodded, glancing at the horizon where smoke curled above distant ruins. "Yes, something is coming. Something bigger. You have endured fear and doubt, and yet you stand." Her armor pulsed, a living heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with the tension of the land. Kale followed her gaze. "Who did this?" he asked softly. "Those who wish to control what I am," she said. "To use my bond with the armor, my power, for their own gain, but I will not allow it, not now, not ever." Figures cloaked in dark metal and bearing jagged weapons surged toward them. Kale drew his sword instinctively, his heart pounding. Lyra raised her gauntlets and her armor flared with brilliant light, forming a protective barrier between them and the attackers. "Stay close," she commanded. "The armor will shield you, but it cannot fight for you entirely. You must act. You must endure." In an instant, her armor expanded, creating a shimmering wave that deflected the strike. Kale's sword found its mark against another assailant, and together they moved as one, human and alien, warrior and armor, synchronized in a dance of survival. Even as the battle raged, Kale could sense something deeper. The armor's reactions were not only defensive, they seemed to communicate almost like a conversation without words, and he felt it, the bond, subtle but undeniable, weaving between them. "You are stronger than I expected," Lyra said, her voice cutting through the clamor of battle. "But strength alone is not enough. Trust is your greatest weapon." "I trust you," he shouted over the din, though he knew she could feel it even without words. The largest attacker, a monstrous figure fused with both steel and shadow, emerged from the smoke. Its eyes glowed red, and its presence seemed to warp the air around it. Lyra's armor pulsed violently, the glow spreading across her body in intricate patterns. "This one is different," she muttered, almost to herself. "It tests me as much as you." For a moment they were almost pinned, the enemy's power threatening to overwhelm them both. Lyra's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "Focus on the bond, let it guide you." Together they forced the creature back, step by step, until it finally stumbled, retreating into the shadows with a deafening roar. They both fell to their knees, breathing heavily, hearts pounding in unison. Kale glanced at Lyra, her armor dimming but still alive with a faint, steady glow. "You see now," she said softly, her voice carrying both exhaustion and quiet pride. "The bond is not merely strength or skill. It is connection, courage, truth, and soon sacrifice. A choice between freedom and love, life and duty. It will entwine with yours, in ways you cannot yet imagine." Kale reached out instinctively, brushing against Lyra's armored forearm. The metal shimmered, rippling slightly at his touch. "Does it feel that?" he asked, his voice hushed. Lyra's eyes softened for a brief moment. "It does, and it is only the beginning. The connection is alive, human. It will grow. And with growth comes pain, doubt, and revelation. The ones who cursed me, the ones who wish to control the armor, they are here, and we cannot hide." Its eyes glowed with cruel intelligence, and its presence warped the very air. Kale felt a chill run through him, but he stood his ground. "You are bold," the figure said, its voice like grinding stone, "but courage alone will not save you." "Not ever. Whatever comes," he whispered, "I will not leave your side." The massive enemy, clad in jagged dark armor, moved with the weight of ancient malice. Its eyes glowed like coals, and every step it took seemed to tremble through the earth beneath them. Kale's grip tightened on his sword, the pulse of Lyra's armor thrumming through the air like a heartbeat he could feel in his chest. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, her voice calm but edged with the weight of inevitability. Kale swallowed hard. "I am ready. We face this together." Its jagged weapon swung, slicing through the air with a sound like grinding stone. Lyra's armor shifted instantly, deflecting the blow, sending a cascade of shimmering light across the valley. Kale struck at another attacker, the rhythm of their movements perfectly synchronized. They moved as one, human and alien, courage and power intertwined. "You fight well," Lyra said mid-strike, her voice carrying over the clash of battle. "But the true test is not strength alone, it is the heart." The massive enemy roared, and a wave of dark energy surged outward, knocking Kale off balance. He stumbled, but Lyra's armor flared, extending protective barriers that enveloped them both. He felt the energy of the armor coursing through him, guiding his movements, connecting him to her in a way that transcended words. "It feels alive," Kale murmured, almost to himself. "It is alive," Lyra replied softly, "and it is tied to me and now to you." The enemy pressed forward, relentless, its movements swift and precise. Kale and Lyra parried, dodged, and struck together, each blow a dance of trust and instinct, yet he could see the strain in her. Every clash of weapons, every pulse of the armor seemed to draw from her very being. "Lyra, you are giving too much," Kale said urgently. "The armor, it's draining you." A surge of energy lifted them both, shielding them from the worst of the blow. Kale could feel the pulse of the armor entwining with his own heartbeat, a sensation both terrifying and intimate. "You feel it, don't you?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling slightly. "The bond, it's stronger than we imagined. Stronger than even the curse that binds me." Kale struck with precision, driving the enemy further into retreat. Yet even as they gained ground, Lyra faltered. The energy of the armor was consuming her, drawing from her life force to protect them both. Kale realized with a sudden clarity that she could not continue like this for long. "Lyra," he shouted, grabbing her hand. "We can end this together, but not like this. You are not alone." He reached deep within himself, summoning every ounce of courage, every memory of trials and shadows and trust. "I trust the bond," he said firmly. "I trust you, and I trust us." The enemy roared, sensing the power of the bond, but it was too late. Kale and Lyra moved as a single entity, striking with precision and strength that neither could have achieved alone. The final blow came as Lyra's armor flared around them both, a radiant shield of light and energy. Kale drove his sword forward with all his strength, and together they shattered the dark armor of their foe. The figure staggered, its power dissipating into shadows that dissolved with the light. For a heartbeat, the valley was silent, the air vibrating with the remnants of energy and battle. Kale and Lyra stood together, breathing heavily, hearts pounding in unison. The armor dimmed slightly, its pulse steady and calm, as if satisfied. "You did it," Kale whispered, looking at her. "We did it." They were no longer two individuals facing the world. They were intertwined, stronger for it, unbroken. The sun began to rise, casting a warm light across the scarred valley. Kale and Lyra stood side by side, watching as the shadows of battle faded into memory. Kale began, hesitating. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I will face it with you." Kale felt a sense of peace he had never known, a sense that the trials had not only tested them but transformed them. "Do you think the curse is broken?" Kale asked cautiously. Lyra shook her head slightly. "Not broken, but understood, controlled, and shared, that is the difference." "In our own way." Kale and Lyra had faced the trials of the world, of the armor, and of themselves, and emerged transformed, bound not only by power and survival, but by trust, respect, and a quiet, enduring love. Yet even in the light of victory, the pulse of the armor reminded them that the world was vast and full of mysteries. There would be challenges ahead, new shadows to face, new truths to discover. But together, Kale and Lyra knew they could endure anything, bound by courage, honesty, and the living bond they had forged in fire and shadow. They walked forward, side by side, hearts beating in unison, ready to face whatever the future held, their bond stronger than any curse, any enemy, or any shadow. And somewhere deep within the living metal, a quiet awareness thrummed, steady and eternal. It recognized them, it had judged them, and it smiled, a promise of unity, strength, and enduring connection.